Welcome to our QPR Preview Show ahead of the home match against Cardiff City, who after Derby's midweek win are in the drop zone, and QPR's nice cushion over the bottom three is also now down to 5 points. Marti Cifuentes himself said this is the biggest game since he took over 18 months ago, with QPR now on a truly terrible run, 6 games without a win, 6 consecutive away defeats, and the latest of them was, of course, a truly awful afternoon at Stoke on Saturday. And there's no point me asking you, Dave, if we got what we deserved this time. I guess I'll ask you what went wrong at Stoke.
Well, we're wrong. Blimey, how long we got? I think everything seemed to go wrong. It was an absolute disastrous performance. I mean, we spoke last week about, how Stoke struggled for goals. I mean, blimey, they couldn't believe their luck. Could they? The amount of chances we give them in the game. I just think, for starters, Cifuentes probably got the team wrong. I think he was a bit unlucky with Frey getting injured. So, I mean, you had no one to play up front, to be honest, did we? So he went with Dembele. I think he could have maybe try to go a bit more defensive, maybe go free at the back, try and protect things a little bit more. But, you know, I think it doesn't really matter what team you are, what level you are. If you don't do the basics, you're going to get beat. And we didn't do the basics. We didn't track runners. They were just running in behind us all the time. There was no marking. There was no fight for the second ball. There was no press. There was nothing. We were awful. It was similar to games early in the season against Middlesbrough and Hull at home, where 3-1 flattered us, to be honest. Should have been 5 or 6. I mean, it was a comprehensive defeat. And Stoke didn't play well. It's not as though they've come and battered us. We gifted them that game. It was an alarming performance because of the attitude of it. Really, really poor.
Yeah, I agree, especially with the point about it could have been 5-1 to Stoke, and I don't think QPR could have had any complaints. We were lucky to get out of there with a 3-1 scoreline. It's right what you're highlighting there, and it's something we spoke about last week where against Leeds we were scrapping, winning 50-50s, fighting for every ball. And this was back to what it was like against Middlesbrough again, and it's just so confusing because Marti Cifuentes, because he's got lots of injuries obviously we'll come back onto that in a minute, but if you take Lucas Anderson as one example, he was actually really good against Leeds. And people will now say, oh, Marty shouldn't have picked him. But I thought he deserved to start. But then it was like an imposter against Stoke. You wouldn't even known it was the same player. And nobody, especially Marti Cifuentes, could have expected him to play like that. And that's just one example. Marty got things wrong. We all know that. There's no doubt in it. Why he went with that forward line again is pretty infuriating because West Brom away showed it wasn't going to work. We had zero threat in that game. So it was kind of madness to try it again. And then it was an annoyance for me that why didn't he start Alfie Lloyd? If he was fit for 45 minutes, should it be the first 45 minutes he's playing?
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? He's probably thinking, keep it tight, 0-0 at half time, and then you bring Lloyd on second half. And to be fair, Lloyd hasn't played that well recently either, but it just didn't work. We just couldn't get up the pitch. I mean, Dembele, he was never going to be able to hold it up. He's not a forward. He was struggling all game really to do that. It was just seemed off. But that's a position, we keep coming back to recruitment all the time, and that's the position we put ourselves in. We haven't got any forwards. You're relying on people that are injury prone and kids basically, and we've ended up with like the worst case scenario where they're all injured at the same time. So, it couldn't have come at a worse time with the way results are going elsewhere as well. It's a bit of a disaster.
Yeah, in terms of Alfie Lloyd, I just think if he's fit, he should do the first 45 because you're setting the precedent for the game. Then maybe you don't go in 2-0 down at half time. Because when you're taking him off then at half time, maybe, or after 50, 60 minutes, at least QPR could still be in the game rather than him coming on when you're already chasing it. And you're right, the shape playing Dembele up front, along with Smith, don't forget, who's not particularly tall. All we're doing is we're trying to play out from the back. As usual, we end up knocking it long, and it was just coming straight back at us from Stokes. It was just all very poor. But whilst Marti Cifuentes clearly got things wrong, biggest factor in our recent struggles, like I alluded to before, it's our injuries. The suspension of Koki Saito has come at the wrong time as well. Marty will probably know himself he got things wrong, but he must be tearing his hair out. There's a graphic on screen now, and if you look, it's almost a full team he could name of first choice players who are out injured. And aside from a goalie and a right back, it's 9 players who'd be first choice, like I say, or close to it. We're not a good enough team, are we, or a good enough squad to cope with the amount of players who got out injured?
No, I think when you've got our best 11 out there and with a few of the backup players, we're a decent side. I think we can match anyone in the division. But you lose as many as we have, any team's gonna struggle, and and we are struggling. You just look, it's always going to have to be players out of position. There's no one to play on the left. If you're going to play this system, there's no one to play on the left, really. Saito's out, so he tried Anderson there. Didn't really work. He moved Smith over at one point. Yang went there second half. That's just one position. And you look at central midfield, just doesn't seem to work without Field, does it? To be honest, Varane didn't look at his best. He's just got so many issues, and even the ones that are back, they don't look 100% fit to me. Varane looked like he was struggling a lot during the game. We know Lloyd's been struggling, and with so many games coming up the next few weeks, he's going to have to get people fit and to try and get these points to get us over the line.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's going to end up the rushing players back, and that's going to be a risk. But I think he's going to have to take the risk given our form. Like I said at the start, 6 games now without a win, and we've probably all said it all season. But QPR have to play well to win games. You take that
Yeah.
many key players out, it's no surprise that our form will fall off a cliff. Whatever QPR team is picked against Cardiff, you just got to hope they scrap and chase and get back to that again. Play with some tempo because that's what I think has annoyed a lot of QPR fans, rightly so, against Stoke. Just that the players didn't really show much desire. It was all very accepting of the defeat. They were busting a gut. That's all you'd expect them to do, isn't it? Just try it as hard as they can. Let's hope we get that against Cardiff. And Marti Cifuentes says he's not shied away from building up this game. Like I said, he's called it the biggest game since he arrived at QPR. Is it?
I don't know if it is the biggest. There were some big ones last year, but it's definitely a big game and a big moment in the season. You know, we got ourselves in a position a month or so ago where you think, oh, relegation's not an issue. They'll be pushing for the top half, could be potentially playoffs, and they're falling off a cliff. And whether it's complacency, injuries, whatever it is, you look at the league table now and think if we lose this one, we are right in the mix. Teams below us are in form as teams in the bottom three always hit form this time of the season. We did last year. Um, and we're going to have to scrap and get some points. That's the bare minimum we should be expecting. We've got a lot of players out weekend, but they're going to have to put in a performance of the similar to Leeds, where they just the work rate. You need that work rate to get results. And Cardiff are fighting for their lives. They're falling in the bottom three now. They have to win. So yeah, it's a big game.
Yeah, it's a big game. I don't agree with him that it's the biggest game of his tenure. When you think back to like Birmingham at home last season, it
Yeah.
felt make or break, didn't it? That week earlier this season of Stoke and ironically Cardiff away, that was a big week as well. But his comments, they show that he's worried, and the Derby win in midweek hasn't helped either because obviously now it's official that QPR are definitely in the relegation scrap. I think he's probably trying to send a message to his players that they need to re-engage, knuckle down. But he's seeking a reaction, isn't he? So hopefully he gets it. But like I say, this match, it just feels a little bit like a sliding doors moment for what's going to come in the final 6 games after it. Because if we lose, we are absolutely in the brown stuff. Whereas if we win, we can probably relax a little bit. One thing's for sure, though, Cardiff, they're in big trouble, back in the drop zone. They've circled the drain. You used that phrase last week, like to describe Stoke over the last couple of seasons. Cardiff have done the same, but they look in big trouble this season, don't they?
They do, especially because when you look at the teams in the bottom three, someone like Luton really shouldn't be there, and you think they're probably going to find a way to get out. So I think they are in big trouble, especially the way Derby have hit form as well. And it's similar to us, really. It's been coming for a while that they're going to be in trouble and eventually go down. And you know that they do look at a side in massive trouble. And I think I mean, for you couldn't pick a better home game for us to try and get back in form, really. Similar for what Stoke had against us last week. This is, you've got to target this game to get back on, winning ways.
Yeah, definitely. It's in our favour, obviously, that we're at home because QPR's woes have largely been away. At home, we've gone toe to toe with the likes of Leeds, Sheffield United, had a good record at home so far in 2025. And you can add to that Cardiff have only got 2 wins from 19 away games. A lot of draws, admittedly, and they did win away at Blackburn on their last away trip. But on paper, they're a team we have to be looking to win to get away up towards mid-table. They dominated their home game against Sheffield Wednesday last week in the first half, paid the price for only getting 1 goal ahead. All the recent games, though, have been close. They just look like they lack that quality to kill teams off. Always the story, isn't it, for struggling teams? 7 of the last 8 league games have either been 1-1 or 2-1 either way. It's not going to be as easy, though, as some QPR fans may hope, is it?
Oh no, it won't be easy by any stretch of imagination. I think all season, all the games have been quite close. A lot of our games have only been 1 goal in a lot of them. and we're not going to roll anyone over. There's not many goals in this QPR team, is there? So it's going to be a hard fought one, and we're going to need a bit of luck on our side. I think. I think that comes into play at this stage of the season. I say Cardiff are going to be fighting for points. They have got some quality in their team. They're not hopeless. They have got ability there. So we're going to have to play well to beat them.
Yeah, they do struggle to keep clean sheets, which is another point. But of course, like you just say, they're going to be scrapping now for every point they need it. They're in the drop zone. Callum Robinson as well. He always seems to be a great player. Some I don't really be disrespectful, but I always wonder how is he at Cardiff. But he missed last week's match against Sheffield Wednesday with a knock. We probably need to hope he can't make this match either because he
Yeah.
is a very good striker. Joe Rolls and Aaron Ramsey both also out for the season, albeit Aaron Ramsey barely featured at all this season, and he'd only just returned from one injury and he's picked up another, it looks like. And we can't mention Cardiff without mentioning Chris Willock. He was an unused sub at Blackburn a fortnight ago, and he's actually been an unused sub in 7 of the last 12 games. Didn't even make the bench last week, which they said was a knock, but definitely out of favour, and it's safe to say that that move has not gone as he would have hoped.
No, I mean it was an odd move, wasn't it? You think all the time he was here, the talk was he wanted to play in the Premier League and be looking for promotions and that. And then he ended up, it was basically a sideways move to Cardiff, who were going to be in the bottom half of us this year. It was an odd move, and I'm not surprised it hasn't worked out for him, to be honest. He hasn't been right since he done them hamstring injuries and when Warburton was manager a couple of years ago. Now, he's never looked the same player, but I'm hoping he's not playing on Saturday because I dread him playing against us. We all know what's going to happen if he plays.
Yeah, definitely. He still always seemed to me like such a Marti Cifuentes type player, but
Mm,
when you look and see that he's only basically started a third of Cardiff matches, and it's definitely proved that it wasn't worth us blowing our budget to try and keep him.
yeah.
If we go back to QPR, where to start? Kenneth Powell, I guess I'll go with first. He went off with a knock against Stoke. Could be another name on the injured list pile, but what have you made of his recent performances? And if he's out, who replaces him?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you had an alternative, you'd probably drop him. He's not been playing well at all. I think you've mentioned before a lot of goals are coming from that side of the pitch. His only minor defence to give him is he gets no protection at all. Like last week, Anderson was embarrassing in front of him, and they mentioned it on commentary during. I was watching it on stream, and they went past Anderson once and Powell into space, and Andy Sinton was saying, "Well, this is a warning." They've done it again and again, and then the next time they scored, and it was like, "Come on, when are you guys going to work it out?" And Powell's an experienced player now. He should be a lot better, but to be honest, what's the alternative? Have we got anyone else to play? Maybe play Ashby over there. I think if he's fit, he has to start really.
Yeah, he probably will. But yeah, it's 4 matches in a row we've conceded a goal down that side. West Brom's penalty came from them attacking down that
Yeah,
side. Borough's second, he let him cut inside. Leeds second was a ball down there. Stokes first. I mean, Anderson was poor, but you look at Kenneth Powell, it's a basic 1-2. All he had to do was track his man and he just basically gave up, didn't even follow him.
yeah,
It's basic stuff. So personally, I would drop him, but like you say, it's just lack of options. Maybe you can move Morgan Fox out there, but I don't think many people would be clamoring for that to happen. And Steve Cook, we got an injury update from the club, and it suggested he could be back for this match. And you'd think Marty will want him in the team, given we conceded 3 last week. Would you bring him back in if he's fit? And what's going on with Liam Morrison? He's like fit for cameos, but never starting. All very odd, isn't it?
yeah. I don't get the Morrison thing. He's been back a while now from injury. He just doesn't seem to start games. And I mean, I'd play him at the weekend definitely. And if Cook's available, I'd have Cook back in as well. I suppose you're right. Yeah, I didn't think of Morgan Fox as the left back is an option. I suppose he was pretty awful last week as
Yeah,
well, to be honest. So it's hard to pick one, but if they're fit, I'd definitely go with Cook and Morrison as your centre halves. But who knows if they're fit or not? And Cook's been struggling for a while now, hasn't he? Since he got that knock at Christmas.
Yeah, definitely he is. He just doesn't look right. But like I say, with him, he's still a great defender. And if he's able to do this match, I think Marty is going to want him back in there. My personal preference would be to play Cook and Morrison as the centre halves and keep Ronnie Edwards back in midfield like he was against Leeds. We need that
Mm.
like extra layer in there because Jonathan Varane, he didn't look right against Stoke. It felt like I said, like he'd been rushed back. Jack Colback's been inconsistent. Kieran Morgan has literally not looked like the same player in his last few appearances compared to what we saw through the winter. Who would you play in the central midfield?
Yeah, I think I'll go Edwards in there. I thought he did well against Leeds, and I was surprised he didn't start there last week. I think him and Colback together could work. I agree with you about Morgan. He's been really poor, hasn't he, since the last few weeks? But I say, but I don't think Varane looked fit to me last week. I put, you know, needs must. You probably have to start him, to be honest. But when you look all over the pitch of us, it's not ideal, is it? You got players half fit, you got players out of form. It doesn't bode well, to be honest.
No, it doesn't. You're right. It's alarming. There's literally not one player last week, I think, who got maybe above 4 or 5 out of 10 in
Yeah,
a
no.
QPR shirt. I think actually the one positive maybe was the performance of Yang Min Hyuk off the
Yeah,
bench.
he
Got his
was good.
first goal. Has he earned himself a start here? And if he has, would you play him on the left or the right?
Yeah, possibly earn himself a start. I thought he did well, mainly due to the lack of options. He's probably going to have to start. I'm not sure. I mean, I thought he did all right on the left last week. The issue with him is defensively. It's with all our left-sided players, no one really helps the fullback out. So maybe do you play Smith out there and play him on the right, and you've got Jimmy Dunn's probably a bit of a safer bet at the minute defensively. But I think he probably will start. I think they'll probably go with Yang and Smith as the two wide players, and hopefully they can find a forward from somewhere.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Michael Frey, if he's fit, he'll probably start, but it's a 3 game week, so it's going to raise
Mm.
questions at some point in the week. And you're right, I probably would start Smith and Yang, whichever side Marty sees fit. But someone who I don't expect to start, and I know you've voiced some opinions on him online, is Caden Dembele, verging on worrying performances from him, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, I mean he's just coming back from injury, so you don't expect too much from him at the moment. But I just think since we announced his signing, the ball has dropped since September. Before his injury, he wasn't playing particularly well, and I just don't know where he fits in the team, where you can play him at the minute. You know, he doesn't seem to want to play on the right. He wants to play in the middle. Well, you've got Chair for that position. You've got Morgan. You've got Madsen. I don't think we wouldn't play Madsen, but you got the option for a 10. There's a lot of players in that same position. Just not sure where he fits in. And we've committed a lot of money to him in the summer, and just start to think if they maybe made a mistake there. Hopefully he's going to come back into form and can show what he could do because he's definitely got a lot of talent. We saw that at the start of the season, but at the minute, I just don't see, especially in like this sort of game where, you need a result. I'm not sure where he plays,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
definitely. No, I agree. It's like they almost brought him in as like Chris Willock's replacement, but he's a bit of a different player. You struggle to
Yeah.
see where he fits in. Recruiting a lot of similar small number 10s has ultimately proved very costly. Also, its final QPR talking point is we've recruited a lot of players who are all out of contract this summer, basically the whole defence, add in the loan players. Is that leading to some of these half-hearted performances that so many of the team that are out there at the moment aren't going to be playing for QPR next season?
I think it's a perfect storm of things. I think that's definitely a factor. He, I think complacency's come into a lot of the players. I think as fans, we all thought we were safe a couple of weeks ago, and this has kind of crept up on us. And I think the players have been like that as well. Um, it's not ideal to have this many players out of contract, is it? And you just think what a big job they're going to have to do in the summer, basically build an entire back four from scratch without much money to spend. And they've got to do that whilst needing to strengthen the midfield, the wide areas, and the attack. It's only the goalkeeper you think will be all right. We can keep him next year, it'll be all right. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's not ideal, and that might come into play in the next few weeks. Some of the players that are looking to go elsewhere in the summer, they might not be available. We've seen it before, haven't we?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, on the pitch as well, the concern is they're not quite giving 100%. They might
Mm.
not go into that 50-50 challenge we need them to. But yeah, it suggests a season of an off season of upheaval is coming in the summer, no matter what happens over the next 7 games. Prediction time then. There's only been one draw in the last 15 games between QPR and Cardiff. No draw at Loftus Road for 10 years. What are you predicting?
Yeah, I'm expecting a really ugly, horrible game. Yeah, it's going to be a tense one. I think we'll just nick it, maybe 2-1, but it's going to be a difficult one. I wouldn't be surprised if he went the other way, but I'm going to go with a win this week, hopefully.
Yeah, the home record we've got is giving me hope, and it's going to be a sellout crowd again. They're not going to accept anything less than a higher tempo and intensity, which hopefully
Yeah,
we'll get. I worry about where our goals are coming from if Frey is out, especially with no Chair or Saito to really create anything. My prediction is literally going to be no Michael Frey. It'll be 1-1. And with Michael Frey, we might nick it 2-1, but it's going to be close. And let's face it, it definitely falls in the must not lose category for
yeah.
QPR this match. It'll be Brian and George on the next show because we've got a midweek match away at Oxford, which is on Wednesday night. And then Dave and I will be back next week to preview the home match against playoff chasing Bristol City. So we definitely need something from these two on paper easier fixtures that we've got here. Fingers crossed by that next show, we are well away up into mid-table and away from the bottom of the table. Until then, thanks for watching and come on you R's.